This episode of Codo Cinema is brought to you by the letter B and by the numbers 7, 15, 40, and 1985. Hi, welcome to Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. For this episode, folks, I'm not going to do this episode alone. I got a guest with me on board. Take a wild guess. Introduce yourself.
Hey guys, this is Michael Codo, Mark Codo's twin brother, coming back for another episode of Codo Cinema.
Yep, that is right. My brother Mike is back on board for an episode of Codo Cinema. The last time you've heard from him was when we both did our review of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Now Mike is back on board again for this episode, but this time it will be another PBS show that has been turned into a movie. Now, this movie that Mike and I were going to talk about, it is actually celebrating its 40th anniversary, which is basically the number 40. And of course, this movie that we're going to talk about, and this is basically from PBS, this movie will be Sesame Street presents Follow That Bird.
That's right, folks. We're going to talk about Follow That Bird.
So Sesame Street presents Follow That Bird, or simply titled Follow That Bird, is a 1985 American family musical road comedy film directed by Ken Kwapis and written by Tony Geis and Judy Freudberg, and is based on the children's television series Sesame Street created by Joanne Gans Cooney and Lloyd Morissette. It was the series' first theatrical feature-length film for Sesame Street. It stars Muppet performers Carol Spinney, Jim Henson, and Frank Oz, alongside Sandra Bernhard, John Candy, Chevy Chase, Joel Flaherty, Waylon Jennings, and Dave Thomas, with Sesame Street regulars Linda Bove, Emilio Delgado, Loretta Long, Sonia Manzano, Bob McGrath, Roscoe Orman, Alana Reed, and Kermit Love in supporting roles, and the voices of Lorraine Newman, Brian Holfeld, Kathy Silvers, Eddie Dezen, and Sally Kellerman. Now, the film, as I mentioned, came out in 1985, the same year as the first Back to the Future movie came out, which is also celebrating its 40th anniversary, just to throw that out there, along with other movies, such as Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which was directed by Tim Burton, The Black Cauldron for Walt Disney Pictures, and National Lampoon's European Vacation, just to name a few movies that came out in 1985, including Fright Night and Weird Science.
Mark, since you mentioned National Lampoon's European Vacation, Chevy Chase actually makes a cameo appearance in Follow That Bird.
That is right. Chevy Chase is one of the many actors who cameoed in Follow That Bird, and we'll mention that once we break down this movie. But anyway, before we do the breakdown, we're gonna give our brief history of Sesame Street, and also, as always, we'll do the breakdown. But we're also gonna talk about a little bit of trivia as well towards the end of the episode. So, when this movie came out on August 2nd, 1985, the film's box office was at $14 million. Now, the film's budget... No, unfortunately, we don't know the film's budget. Now, unfortunately, the film has a box office of $14 million, but unfortunately, there's nothing much to say about the film's budget, to be quite honest. So there's no good documentation on what the budget was.
Nope. No box office budget for Follow That Bird.
Now, this is a little weird. So how come how come there's no budget for that movie? But unfortunately, according to TV tropes, yes, this movie was a box office bomb when it came out in 1985. The budget, and I quote, according to TV tropes, the budget, unstated but likely no more than $10 million or so. Box office was around $14 million. Although, according to TV tropes, it says $13.9 million, but on the Wikipedia site it says $14 million. So it's probably around that $14 million box office. And while it opened to glowing reviews from critics, so it received good reviews, it was buried by a mountain of competitors that summer. The failure to perform hurt the children's television workshop financially and led to no other Sesame Street movies being made until 1999's The Adventures of Elmo in Grouchland,
which is the second Sesame Street film to come out in 1999.
That is right.
Which is also another box office bomb.
Yeah, so that's real sad right there. Like, these two Sesame Street theatrical movies, Follow That Bird and Elmo in Grouchland, bombed at the box office, which is really sad because those movies were actually pretty good. So yes, the film was a box office disappointment, but it received good reviews from critics. Now, just to give it a background on our history of Sesame Street, we have seen a lot. We have seen and watched a lot of episodes of Sesame Street on WTTW11, which is the PBS channel.
Yep. When we were little, and especially when growing up.
Yeah. During the daytime, PBS Kids. Before the nighttime, where it transitions to WTTW11 for local news.
Which is Windows to the World.
That is right, Windows to the World. I actually didn't know that.
That's the meaning of WTTW.
Well, there's some history right there. Now, we grew up watching Sesame Street, and since we mentioned A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which basically features, obviously, who else? Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers has made a few appearances on Sesame Street before.
He did, especially when he meets up with Big Bird.
That is right. And there is a reference to Mr. Rogers in this movie, so we'll get to that pretty soon. And also, we know a lot of characters on Sesame Street, right? Like, yeah. Big Bird is one of them.
You also got Elmo.
Elmo, who actually makes his first ever appearance in this movie towards the end.
Kermit the Frog, which he's voiced by Jim Henson.
Right, and then of course you got Bert and Ernie.
Oscar the Grouch.
Yep, Oscar the Grouch. Count the Count. And then you got Telly. Then you also got Cookie Monster. We can't leave out Cookie Monster.
No. You also got Super Grover.
Right, Super Grover, or just Grover, right? Now, just to name a few Muppets off the top of our heads, right? That's some of the Muppets right there. And of course, you also have the human characters. You got human characters like Linda, Luis Rodriguez, Susan Robinson, Maria Rodriguez, Bob Johnson, Gordon Robinson, Olivia Robinson, and of course, you also got Willie, who is being played by Kermit Love. And anyway, those are the human characters in this movie. Now, just to add this to the story, since this show, and also to add this is basically aired on PBS, so of course, but also HBO, since later down the line HBO also picked this show up, but also to add, I am a former member of Eastern Illinois University's TV station, which is a PBS affiliated station called WEIU TV Public Broadcasting Station. I actually worked and volunteered there. Well, I did my volunteering for for WEIU's news show, WEIU Newswatch, and I worked there as a DJ for Hitmix 88.9 WEIU, your music, your station. And that's where I got my start, and that's actually where I got my start to do podcasting over there. I've been volunteering and working for WEIU since the fall of 2019. So it's already been almost 6 years since I worked for the PBS affiliated station on my college campus, WEIU TV and Public Broadcasting. Plus, I worked there for about three. I volunteered and worked there for 3 years, doing WEIU Newswatch and of course Hitmix 88.9 WEIU, plus my podcasting as well.
That's very cool, Mark.
Yep, and it's amazing how WEIU is a PBS affiliated station. Big shout out to the staff and students over there. You guys are awesome. Big shout out to Jeff Owens, Rob Calhoun, Kelly Goodwin, Lacey Spence, and all the other staff members and students at WEIU TV Public Broadcasting and Hitmix 88.9 WEIU. You guys are awesome. Anyway, that is enough on the background right there. So, let's get to the breakdown of this movie, shall we? So Mike, can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
Of course.
So, let's go to Sesame Street by talking about follow that. So, let's find our way to Sesame Street as we are about to follow that bird.
Or should we say Sesame Street presents Follow That Bird.
All right. And bird. Wait a minute. Bird. It's bird. That's the letter that starts with the letter B.
Yes. Letter B.
That is the letter for this episode. The letter B. Bird. And then of course, the episode recording of is basically season 7, which is the number 7, and then of course 15, which is also the numbers for this episode as well. And of course, 1985, which is the year this movie came out, and 40, because Sesame Street Follow That Bird is celebrating its 40th anniversary. So, you got numbers 7, 15, 40, and 1985 as your numbers for this episode. And of course, the letter B. So, let's get to the movie. So the movie begins with a group of birds that are part of an organization called the Feathered Friends. Their topic of the day, Big Bird, and they're talking about Big Bird because the members of the Feathered Friends sees Big Bird as a sad, lonely bird, and the organization feels that Big Bird should be placed with a family of birds, seeing as he appears to be an orphan, and to which Big Bird is 6 years old. So the organization approves for his representative, Miss Finch, to help Big Bird.
Well, before the meeting, there was an opening song of Oscar the Grouch singing the
the Grouch anthem,
which shows the American flag.
And right behind, and of course, what's also placed in front of the American flag is a bunch of garbage, which to anybody who has seen Sesame Street will know who this character is in that pile of garbage with a garbage can.
Oscar the Grouch.
Yes, and it opens up with this narration of someone saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Grouch anthem." And then Oscar pops out of the garbage can and says, No. When we do this Grouch anthem, you do this by sitting. Yeah, I'm talking to all of you. Down in front. I don't know what was the point of that song, of how it opens up, but I'm pretty sure to anybody who has seen this movie will probably get a reference to the opening of Patton, because the movie Patton, which is a World War II movie, opens up with a speech from Patton himself, performed by George C. Scott, who is basically presenting his speech about World War II right in front of the American flag.
And this was parodied multiple times.
Obviously with this, and obviously the way how it opened for and obviously the way how it opened for Follow That Bird is basically parodied. But this time with Oscar the Grouch doing the Grouch anthem.
Yeah, that's very funny and hilarious at the same time.
All right.
All right, and Oscar always likes to say,
Scram! Oscar's like, all right, everybody, now scram. Let's play this movie, shall we?
sit back, relax, and have a rotten time.
Like how Johnny Cash told Oscar, have a rotten day. So anyway, obviously I've already talked about the feathered friends talking about Big Bird, and then of course this leads to Miss Finch, who's being played by Sally Kellerman, and to which to anybody who doesn't know who Sally Kellerman is, she played one of the female soldiers in 1970's MASH movie.
And she also appeared in the Back to School movie with Rodney Dangerfield as Dr. Diane Turner.
Yes. So then Miss Finch arrives on Sesame Street and she finds Big Bird, who's being played by Carol Spinney, and Miss Finch convinces Big Bird that he should be with a bird family. So then, like, you know, this gives Big Bird an idea of what his family would possibly look like in animated form.
Well, the animation was shown twice.
That's right. And the animation is actually pretty good animation. Like, the animation for the first time is basically Big Bird blowing up balloons with the letters W and B. You know how Sesame Street does the end of the episode. You know how at the end of the episode they announce what letter of the day, what number of the day was. Well, for this one, it was right at the beginning. So it was with the Warner Brothers logo, because Warner Brothers was the film company that distributed this movie. And Big Bird says this: Sesame Street is brought to you by the letters W and B.
That's right, which stands for Warner Brothers.
Yep. And obviously enough, that animation was used again, this time where Big Bird imagines his, Big Bird family,
Yes.
which is basically big yellow birds.
Mm-hmm. Big Bird was having dinner with his family. They also went on a hike.
They went on a hike, told stories,
Played baseball,
and then, of course, bedtime stories, right?
Yes.
And Big Bird was like, I kind of like the idea.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure everyone heard about it.
Everyone heard it. All the members of Sesame Street, including Linda, who heard the conversation. So the announcement comes as a sad goodbye to Big Bird's friends, who considered themselves his family. Now, the family, which is basically, the human characters on Sesame Street, which is basically, Linda, Louise, Susan, Gordon, Bob, Willie, Olivia, any of the characters that you can think of, right, from Sesame Street. Soon afterwards, Big Bird arrives in Ocean View, Illinois, which is the location that Miss Finch took Big Bird to. Although Big Bird went alone on a plane, but of course this is Miss Finch telling Big Bird the location of his new family in Ocean View, Illinois, where he is introduced to his new family, the Dodos, and Big Bird tries to get along with his new family, but he feels homesick.
Yeah, he does. He does feel homesick. And Big Bird was trying out other activities with the Dodos.
Right, like the Dodos do. Like they go and hunt for worms for one activity, and then there's another activity where they do like an exercise activity. Back in the day, there's an 80s half-hour show where they do like exercises, right?
Yeah.
Or fitness training, that they show on TV. That's what the Dodos actually do in this movie.
But the Big Bird ended up not doing exercises.
Well, he's basically homesick, and also to add this, the Dodos, you got Saturday Night alum Lorraine Newman playing the Mommy Dodo. Then you got Brian Hallfeld playing Daddy Dodo. Then you got Eddie Dezen as Donnie Dodo, to which also to bring this up, Eddie Dezen played the know-it-all kid in the Polar Express movie.
And he also played Eugene in Grease.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, I didn't know that was him in Grease.
Yes.
Oh.
Because he says, "It's Eugene."
Ah. And then Kathy Silvers played Marie Dodo. So that's the Dodo family, and they referred Big Bird as Big Dodo.
Big Dodo?
Yeah, Big Dodo. So one day a large postcard arrives from Mr. Snuffleupagus.
Which is Snuffy.
Yeah, Snuffy, or Snuffy for short. Which I'm pretty sure at the time, there was actually a thing at the time when Big Bird met Snuffy. All the human characters think that Snuffy is not real. So they all think Big Bird was just imagining, right?
But turns out that's not the case.
Nope, that's not the case. That's not the case anymore. So Snuffy wants to visit Big Bird at his new home, but the Dodos laugh at the notion that Big Bird has friends that are not birds.
No.
Their words upset Big Bird, who then decides to run away back to Sesame Street. Also, while I'm at it, this is filmed in Canada, just to let you know.
Toronto, Canada, Bolton, Schaumburg, Woodbridge, and Georgetown.
Yes, so this is like in Ontario, Canada, but also I'm pretty sure parts of Toronto as well, because this was all filmed in Canada. Because you know how Sesame Street is basically, well, obviously it's filmed in a studio, but there's obviously New York, right?
Yes.
But of course, with this movie, it took place in Canada, which obviously enough, Ocean View, Illinois. I mean, I think it was made up for this movie, to be quite honest. Although it would be interesting if it did took place in Illinois. Hey, it would have been right in our home state.
Filming in our own backyard.
If that was the case, but hey, they filmed this in Canada, so that's okay. But anyway, Big Bird's friends hear of his flight on TV, and this is being read by a news reporter who's being played by Chevy Chase, who to mention appeared in National Lampoon's European Vacation. He plays the newscaster, and he's basically reading off the story. He's reading the story of basically Big Bird running away from the Dodo family, and he also references Mr. Rogers, basically saying, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?"
A beautiful day for our neighbors. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
That's right. That's right. And of course, he talks about Big Bird running away from the Dodos, but also bringing up Sesame Street. But he actually said it wrong. He says Sesame Street, but it's actually called Sesame Street. That's the only scene Chevy Chase is in.
He was only in for a cameo because he was busy with National Lampoon's European Vacation.
But I'm pretty sure he had other things to do. Obviously enough, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of human characters. There's other human characters outside of Sesame Street who made cameos.
And there's also another celebrity that made a cameo appearance, to which Chevy Chase also collaborates too.
John Candy. John Candy makes a cameo towards the end of the movie, but we'll mention that pretty soon.
And
So along the way, basically,
Kermit, don't forget.
Kermit the Frog makes a cameo appearance in this movie,
And-
to which he's being played by Jim Henson.
To which not only Jim Henson plays Kermit the Frog, but he voiced Ernie too.
Right.
And here's a fact: this is the only Sesame Street feature film to star both Henson as Kermit the Frog and Ernie, which is Jim Henson, and of course, Richard Hunt, and the last Muppet film to involve them before their deaths in 1990 and 1992.
That is absolutely right. Right. The only Sesame Street movie to feature Jim Henson as both Ernie and Kermit the Frog.
And this is also one of Jim Henson's last films that he ever appeared because he passed away in 1990. And he also, before his death, he also directed the 1986 movie Lambeth.
Right. He still did other projects prior to his death. in 1990.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to both Jim Henson and Richard Hunt. So anyway, moving forward, all the human characters in Sesame Street, including the Muppets themselves, like Bert and Ernie, Cookie Monster, Super Grover, Telly, Oscar the Grouch,
And count.
and the cows, all drive in different cars, although Super Grover flies because he is Super Grover. But they all drive in cars, but unfortunately, there is one problem. There is a problem with one of the cars. Unfortunately, Cookie Monster likes to eat Gordon's car.
Oh, come on. I'm so hungry for car parts.
He eats the entire car in this very movie.
Including the headlights, too.
Oh my goodness.
One of the headlights.
Couldn't he just bring a bunch of cookies and not eat the car?
Maybe 1 or 2 packs of cookies.
Probably the best way to do that. Yeah. But anyway,
And also, while driving, Count was also counting the telephone poles.
ha.
And of course, Bert and Ernie were actually on a biplane flying.
Yes, they're on a biplane flying. There's a lot going on.
I mean,
Like, is that something they do every day on Sesame Street?
I don't know, but I would say this. The story is all over the place.
Yes, it's all over the place because there's like different characters. There's like all the different characters are going different places just to find Big Bird.
Yes, they are searching for Big Bird.
Couldn't this movie be titled The Search for Big Bird?
While Mrs. Finch is on the look for Big Bird.
That's right, because she found out that that he left the dodos.
Hey, no wonder they call Follow That Bird.
Yeah. So anyway, along the way, Big Bird soon tires. Big Bird's basically walking, and he's tired of walking, and hitches a ride with a turkey farmer. He doesn't have a name, but he's being played by American singer and actor Waylon Jennings, who is actually he's a musician. He does country music, country rock, country outlaw, progressive country. So he's a country music musician, and there is a musical number in this movie which is basically Ain't No Road Too Long, which is not only sung by Big Bird and Waylon Jennings, but also Gordon, Olivia, Cookie Monster, Grover, Count the Count, and Big Bird. And also, while mentioning it, the Sesame Street theme was also played at the beginning of the movie. So anyway, after some time, Big Bird ends up on the farm where he befriends 2 children. And after spending the night in the barn, he helps them with their chores the next day, leading into another musical number called leading into 2 different musical numbers, one at night called One Little Star, and of course Easy Going Day. Easy Going Day, which is basically Big Bird doing the chores with the kids. Basically, hey, easy going day with those chores, even though the chores are tough, but a song can make it easy.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Mrs. Finch finds a feather from Big Bird on a dirt road.
Oh boy.
I'm pretty sure birds shed, right? Or molt.
Molt.
I think he's molt. I guess Big Bird never molts.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe it was just a part of a feather. It was just a part of a feather that just flew off of him.
Maybe it would lead to a trail.
Well, Mrs. Finch found one yellow feather, so she knows it's Big Bird. So anyway, Big Bird flees when Mrs. Finch is seen nearby. Mrs. Finch even tries to tell the kids where is Big Bird, but unfortunately the kids cross their fingers from behind.
Yeah.
Just so the kids don't reveal where Big Bird went.
Mm-hmm. They just don't want to spoil it.
Mm-hmm. So then Big Bird makes his way to a city called Toadstool, but Mrs. Finch is not too far behind, and Big Bird has to flee once again. On the outskirts of Toadstool, Big Bird meets a pair of no-goods called the Sleaze Brothers. One of them is named Sid. He's being played by Joe Flattery, and Sam Sleaze, who's being played by Dave Thomas. They run this. I
believe they run this circus thing
or a fairgrounds, yeah, a circus or fairgrounds, and they basically captured. They basically offering to so basically they're offering to hide Big Bird from Miss Finch, but Big Bird soon realizes he is trapped when the brothers refuse to let him go. And smelling a lucrative deal on their hands, the brothers paint Big Bird blue. Big blue bird, huh?
Wow.
Blah, 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 blue, blue. Blah, 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 blue, right? Big blue bird, right?
Yes, from a big yellow bird to a big blue bird.
Wow. Big blue bird. Try saying that 5 times. Big blue bird. 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 Blah. Wow. Wow. Wow, that's wow, I can't even say that. I can't even say that like I couldn't even say it like that.
Or 5 or 6 times.
I can't even say that 5 or 6 times. Wow. That's almost like a tongue twister, right?
Yes.
After saying that a few times. Huh. And of course, Big Bird being blue, he sings a song. He sings a song about being blue, which is basically "I'm so blue," and
It's kind of sad too.
that is really sad. Like Big Bird is trapped and he is sad in a cage performing this song
And
as a
he-
blue bird.
And he is very blue.
And of course, like obviously the Sleaze brothers called Big Bird, called Big Bird the blue bird of happiness. To which he's not even happy. Why is he happy when he's blue?
Yeah.
Because Big Bird's stage song is one of the saddest in which he sings of being home with his friends. So after the show, 2 children meet him backstage where he explains for them to call Sesame Street and tell them where he is. So let's get one thing. So let's double back for a sec. Big Bird has been walking alone. He has stopped by different places. He meets up with this truck driver who's driving turkeys. He also spent the night at a barn with a couple kids
Two kids.
yeah, 2 kids. And then he's being chased down by Miss Finch, to which leading to a moment where Bert and Ernie are flying a biplane, right?
Yes.
They're flying a biplane searching for Big Bird, to which the plane almost hits Big Bird out in a cornfield,
I mean,
which is something that Alfred Hitchcock would probably do, which
mean-
he did in a movie,
I
which
mean-
which Alfred Hitchcock did in a movie.
I mean, would Big Bird shouldn't Big Bird recognize Bert and Ernie?
I mean, not from below. Like
Wow.
Bert and Ernie are high up, flying a plane.
Yeah, they're like flying, especially when they're looping around.
Ernie and Bert are going upside down this biplane. There's a song for that, Upside Down World. Then he got All Together Now as well. And then of course he also got Working on My Attitude as well. But yeah, there's other songs in this movie, but one of them there's an Upside Down World that Bert and Ernie sing while trying to find Big Bird, to which they fly upside down.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next day, Big Bird's friends sneak into the circus tent to free him, while Cookie Monster was able to steal one of the Sleaze brothers' cookies.
Oh, because he's hungry. He's hungry for cookies. Nom 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 nom.
But he actually took a cookie, which is actually funny.
So it was a circus. So
Yes,
this was a circus.
it was a circus, yes. So thankfully, so anyway, the Sleaze brothers take off before they can rescue him. Gordon and Olivia give chase and help release Big Bird before the 2 Sleaze brothers are pulled over and charged with a long string of illegal practices and felonies. And guess who pulls those 2 brothers over?
It's John Candy, the late John Candy.
That's right, John Candy is the guy who pulls over the Sleaze brothers.
And of course, fun fact, John Candy also collaborated with Chevy Chase in the first National Lampoon's movie.
That is true. And John Candy played a state trooper, to which also he also played I'm pretty sure a trooper as well, but I think a police official in the Blues Brothers that came out in 1980.
Yeah.
So, not the only law enforcement character that John Candy has played.
Nope.
So anyway, after Big Bird returns to Sesame Street amid cheers from his friends, but he is soon but soon grows worried when Miss Finch shows up.
Well, before that, Big Bird was supposed to jump. They were driving away. He was driven away.
Unfortunately, knowing the fact that Big Bird is a kid, right? He's 6
Yes.
years old, and and I'm like wondering, like, Big Bird, just jump, just jump. You're being held hostage by these two sleazy brothers who basically capture you, and you're in the moment where you're in the moment like saying, look, I can't jump off of this car. I need permission. I need permission. But Gordon's like, look, you have my permission. Just jump.
Come on, Big Bird, jump.
I understand. Now, look, I understand. Listen, I understand. Big Bird's a kid. I really do. But, man, come on, Big Bird. You're being rescued. Don't stall, okay?
Just be brave.
Yeah, exactly. Just be brave.
And then the Sleeves brothers got caught by the cops.
Right. So then Miss Finch shows up promising to try and place him with another bird family. But unfortunately, Maria strongly rebuffs Miss Finch's decision, claiming that on Sesame Street, there are all kinds of people and things. And they are all happy together, even if they aren't all the same. And, like, you got Muppets, monsters, human beings, a dog, even more birds, too.
Yes. They are his family.
Even a Snuffleupagus.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, Elmo makes a cameo at the end of the movie.
That's true, yep. After hearing Maria's testimony and realizing how far his friends went back to get him, Miss Finch declares that Big Bird can stay. Case closed.
Yep.
Now home where he belongs, Big Bird returns to his nest, where he greets Mr. Snuffleupagus, and of course, don't also mention Oscar the Grouch is there, who calls him a turkey.
Yeah.
Which is also funny because before he left, before Big Bird left, Oscar calls Big Bird a turkey. Get it? Because, I guess Oscar's grouchy.
Yes, and of course, also Cookie Monster and the rest of the people from Sesame Street came back.
And
because the car was torn apart by Cookie Monster.
yes, Cookie Monster ate the whole car.
Oh,
Cookie Monster! Be so hungry for cookies. Yes, Cookie Monster is hungry for cookies. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this movie. That's actually the whole breakdown of this movie, so that is basically it.
And of course, Count the Counts was actually counting the credits.
That's true. That is actually true.
It was during the credit scene.
Mm-hmm.
Credit sequence, I should say.
Yep. So anyway, overall thoughts. I'd say this movie's good.
I would totally agree, but even though this movie does have its fair share of problems.
I think one of the main problems why this movie didn't perform well at the box office, well, there is competition. You had competition for other movies that came out.
Like National Lampoon's European Vacation.
Well, Fright Night and Weird Science, and there's other heavy competition like Back to the Future, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure, plus The Black Cauldron, which also bombed.
Yep.
And then, of course, poor marketing. There was poor marketing on marketing this movie. A focus on a specific demographic that was not as broad as other family films, and a release date that wasn't ideal.
Oh boy.
So yes, there was competition because if you're trying to release a movie like around the time where another movie that's popular that came out, then you're gonna have a tough competition.
And they did.
Yes, they did. And poor marketing. When you market this film poorly, you know that you're not gonna make that much money if you don't market the movie properly, right?
Mm-hmm. The same thing to the Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland.
I don't know about that one, but I think maybe that one has similar problems too. But that's a whole nother episode for another day.
That's true.
So yeah. So and a specific demographic. To be quite honest, though, do you think do you think this movie tried to aim for a certain demographic for kids?
I believe so.
I
But
guess it was trying to, but it did have more of a bit of an adult feel to it. Maybe just a little bit.
even though it's a G-rated film,
Right. But I think this is like one of those movies where not a lot of people are familiar with this type of story, right?
no,
Because when you think of Sesame Street, what's the one thing you think of Sesame Street?
like letters, numbers, characters,
Right. I mean, they didn't have that big of a
and songs.
right in songs. I don't think I don't. I mean, maybe once in a while they'll have a certain storyline. They'll have a certain storyline, maybe for like specials. You know, I know there's certain they do certain specials where they add in certain storylines for their for for one or two characters. But for a theatrical movie, it is really tough to adapt. I mean, sure, it was easy because it's Sesame Street, right?
And this movie focuses on Big Bird.
Right. I think it's just the story on Big Bird was. I think the story on Big Bird and going outside. I mean, the story of Big Bird was good, but I think since it took place outside of Sesame Street, in the real world, it kind of did stir up some questions. Like, I'm not familiar with this story. I'm not familiar with this story. What's going on with this? I thought it was going to take place on Sesame Street.
Yeah, why this movie didn't take place on Sesame Street?
I mean, it did take place on Sesame Street, but unfortunately, when you have a title that says "Follow That Bird," they're all following Big Bird, finding Big Bird, and it all ends up on Sesame Street.
Yes.
Even though I mean, it's actually I mean to be honest, it is nice that they actually went into the countryside,
Yeah.
which is actually pretty nice. But at the same time, yeah, I guess you could say this story wasn't like familiar as as Sesame Street, right?
Right.
I mean, it still works. This movie still works for what it is, for what it was trying to do, right? And I appreciate it for what it tried to do. It tried to do something new.
Not only for kids, but also for adults.
Exactly, it tried to do something new, and hey, I appreciate it for what it tried to do. Let's just say the marketing, if they actually put effort into marketing this movie, then I think this movie would have done well at the box office.
Yeah, I believe this movie, and putting in a certain budget.
A certain budget, and of course, a good release date.
Also with a good story.
Right. The story was still good.
I mean,
The story was still good, but maybe tweak it up, maybe revise it a little bit just to make it a little more familiar, right? I mean, you got the characters down to which we're all familiar with the characters, but not so much for the story.
no.
But at the end of the day, though, if you after watching this movie, I think the story was fine. It was just unfamiliar. I mean, even the film's focus on Big Bird and other Sesame Street characters may have limited its appeal to audiences who weren't familiar with or interested in the show. Right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I think this movie is still fine. I think this movie's fine.
And this was the first Sesame Street film to be released theatrically.
Right. Right. So anyway, I would give this movie an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, Mark. I would rank this movie 8 out of 10.
It's a watchable movie. It's something new, which I actually, to be honest, I appreciate it for at least trying something new with these characters that we're familiar with.
Despite the flaws it has.
Right. So anyway, before we go into the trivia, the songs in this movie, I mean, let's be honest, I don't remember much of the songs except for the Grouch anthem and the Sesame Street theme, to be quite honest. Like, some of the songs are not bad, they're good songs. They're just, I mean, they're just not as memorable. Maybe Easy Going Day is also a memorable one too. Like, I guess you could say Easy Going Day is kind of memorable.
And how about Ain't No Road Too Long?
Yeah, That one's also pretty memorable too. But the songs are good. But I think it's just some of them are just basically forgettable at best. To be quite honest.
Yes, and also the actors also did a very good job too.
Oh yeah, everybody involved with this movie did a real good job playing their parts. I mean, the cameos were pretty good too.
And I actually enjoyed Jim Henson too. And of course, don't forget Frank Oz.
Frank Oz who played Cookie Monster, Bert, and Grover.
Jerry Nelson as Count Found Count.
Ah 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 ah.
And everyone else involved in this movie.
Right. And then, including Sally Kellerman. Sally Kellerman played Miss Finch.
Yeah, she did a very good job of voicing Miss Finch.
Yeah, she did. So anyway, let's move forward to conclude this episode. Let's talk about some trivia. So, during the I'm So Blue song, Carol Spinney broke down in tears after filming.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because a song like that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm So Blue.
Yes.
Yeah, that can get you to sad
Mm-hmm.
and break down in tears.
Mm-hmm.
And to move forward, this was Jim Henson's final performance as Kermit the Frog, as well as Ernie and other characters in a theatrical film, in a theatrical feature.
He died in 1990, which was 35 years ago.
Oh, that is right. That is right. Oh, rest in peace to Jim Henson, though.
Rest in peace.
And then at the end of the credits, Count is counting the end credits. He says, "Hi, Mom." When Joanne Gans Cooney's name appears, she is the creator of Sesame Street, which came out in 1969, and the founder of its production company, the Children's Television Workshop. She is sometimes referred to as the mother of Sesame Street.
Hey.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. So to move forward, when Big Bird is being welcomed home at the end of the movie, you get a quick glimpse of a character in a window that was definitely Elmo.
Yeah, I actually recognized Elmo at the end of the movie, and he made a cameo appearance.
The movie was made before he was even considered a character on the show.
Ah.
Yep. And here's another thing. This is basically when Big Bird is flying the airplane. Well, he's sitting in the airplane.
Yeah.
Well, technically he's not flying because Big Bird doesn't even fly.
No.
Yeah, I know Big Bird doesn't even fly, but he's in an airplane. But whatever. But hey, you gotta keep it nice for Big Bird. Big Bird's a good guy.
Yes.
Big Bird's a good bird. All right. So the airline that Big Bird takes to Illinois is CTW. This is referring to Children's Television Workshop, and the name of the production company behind Sesame Street. It has since been renamed Sesame Workshop. The flight number is 1138, possibly a reference to George Lucas's film THX 1138, which is possibly a reference to the George Lucas film THX 1138, which came out in 1971.
Wow. Up until they did a logo of THX.
Right. Also, to bring this up, Frank Oz, who played Cookie Monster, Bert, and Grover, he played Yoda in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, to which George Lucas was also involved with. Plus, 1986's Labyrinth as well.
Not to mention the Star Wars prequels.
Right. Now, of course, after filming the footage of Big Bird on the farm with Ruthie and Floyd, which are the two kids on the farm, the filmmakers discovered that the film was badly scratched and unusable. The actors, crew, and performers had to return to the same location, but it was months later and in winter, so many of the green leaves the audience sees are spray painted, and after each take, the kids will run to put their coats on.
Oh, Probably too cold to film outside.
Right. So anyway, moving forward, the scene with Big Bird running from Ernie and Bird's approaching plane is a spoof on a visually similar scene from the Alfred Hitchcock film North by Northwest, in which Cary Grant's character hides in a cornfield after a crop duster attack. The subsequent pesticide cloud in this version is replaced by Bird's falling bottle cap collection.
Wow, nice reference.
Yep.
And this was parodied multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, the Sleaze brothers, played by Joe Flaherty and Dave Thomas, are pulled over by a state trooper played by the late John Candy. All three of these actors are veterans of SCTV, which came out in 1976.
That's a TV show, right?
Yes, a sketch comedy show set around the fictitious TV station SCTV, Second City Television, which is actually a Canadian television sketch comedy. So anyway, moving forward, yes, Sesame Street, the main set for Sesame Street, was recreated in Toronto for this movie. While going back to the biplane scene, Bert and Ernie, to which they're being performed by Jim Henson and Frank Oz, they were actually filmed 18 feet high.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how they did that, but it's very, very difficult to film this scene with Bert and Ernie flying on that biplane.
Right. You are right. I can't imagine how they pulled this scene off, but hey, they did it.
Looks like they are soldiers then.
Mm-hmm. So the news reporter, played by Chevy Chase, opens his broadcast by quoting the theme song from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, another PBS Kids production where became popular during the same period as Sesame Street.
That's obviously true.
So Oscar the Grouch only uses one arm, his left, throughout the entire film because he is driving his sloppy jalopy, and he only has one hand on the steering wheel at all times.
Why not use two?
I don't know. He was driving Maria in that car.
And of course, they actually got lost.
Because Oscar the Grouch wants to go to different places that relates to, him being grouchy.
Yes.
So the Dodo's children. So the name of the Dodo kids, Donnie and Maria, are a clear reference to the real life brother and sister Donnie Osmond and Marie Osmond.
Whoa.
Yep. So
I can't even imagine Donnie Osmond being in this movie.
Yeah. Yep. And you know what? Hey, can't imagine him singing. I can't imagine him singing a song in this movie. I'm pretty sure he got down to business for being a dodo.
Yep.
Yep. He got down to business playing a dodo. So anyway, this is Ken Kwappi's directorial debut. And then the phrase, "Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?" is used numerous times throughout the film. Also, since this film is a Warner Brothers movie, a plush Wile E. Coyote from Looney Tunes can be seen as one of the prizes at the Sleaze Brothers Fun Fair.
Huh. How did Wile E. Coyote get into Sesame Street?
I don't know. I don't know.
Did Wile E. Coyote follow the Roadrunner?
He probably did. Beep beep. Of course, this is also the film debut of Allison Court, who plays Ruthie. She would later go on to star in The Big Comfy Couch, which came out in 1992, which is another PBS Kids production.
Wow.
Also, Kermit the Frog making a cameo. He jokes about the chicken not crossing the road due to being chicken. Will later be reused in the 2010 comic book Muppet King Arthur in the pun-off between Kermit as Arthur and Robin as Mordred. Also, John Candy has also guest starred on Sesame Street, but as a different character. Plus, John Candy's character in this movie is named Nelson, according to the badge on his chest. And yes, Chevy Chase was also in European Vacation, to which Paul Bartel also made that appearance as well.
And Caddyshack 2 in 1988.
Right. Also, here's something that is interesting. Bill Murray was considered for the role of Sid Sleaze, while for Sam Sleaze, Ron Carey and Danny DeVito were also considered for the role as well.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the different actors playing the Sleaze brothers.
Oh, that's very surprising too.
Now, in the original screenplay, David, who is a character on Sesame Street, who is actually being played by Northern Calloway, he was originally going to appear in this movie, but unfortunately, his character was cut from the movie. Now, before I dive into the reason, David was going to talk about a plan to locate Big Bird. And it wasn't just him, but the kids were going to help out the Sesame Street gang to rescue Big Bird. So this movie, there were different ideas for where they want to go with this movie.
So there were different ideas, right?
Right. Even Bert and Ernie were originally going to rescue Big Bird from the Sleaze brothers in their biplane.
I couldn't imagine that.
And also during the during the whole truck scene with that turkey truck driver,
Yeah.
Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton, Sure, and Kenny Rogers were also considered for the truck driver.
Whoa. But I'm pretty sure they all dropped out.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Same with Dolly Parton. I believe she was busy from 9 to 5.
Ha ha ha! Very funny. Ha, very funny, Mike. So anyway,
Wait.
but anyway, there was another film. There was also another director who was originally going to direct this movie. John Landis, who directed the Blues Brothers and Animal House, was asked by Warner Brothers to direct this film. He liked it but turned it down as he was busy directing Into the Night in 1985 at that time.
That's basically after directing the first segment of Twilight Zone, the movie, especially after that whole helicopter accident.
I don't. After that helicopter accident, when you have the scene with Bert and Ernie flying a biplane, I don't know how that's gonna turn. That's gonna be haunting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of glad John Landis did not direct this movie.
I'm totally glad.
I mean, it would be interesting, but after that helicopter accident,
that's literally gonna bite him back in the butt.
Yeah, it's gonna bite him back. Yeah, that's not gonna be a good sign.
Nope.
That would not be a good sign after what happened on set.
Which is obviously a red flag.
So anyway, going back to the character of David. David was a character on Sesame Street when it first aired. David was one of the main characters of Sesame Street, being played by Northern Calloway, and Northern Calloway, who played David, was absent because he was barred from entering Canada where the movie was filmed due to a criminal record dating back to an incident on September 19th, 1980 when he went on a violent, frenzied rampage in Nashville, Tennessee due to mental illness.
Whoa.
It was fairly kept under wraps so that Calloway, who sought medical help, could resume work on the show, until a couple of later incidents ultimately caused his dismissal from the series in 1989. Unfortunately, he died in 1990 at the age of 41, just 4 months before the similarly untimely passing of Jim Henson.
Oh, he passed away the same year as Jim Henson.
Yep, so rest in peace to Northern Calloway as well. One more piece of trivia. Bert and Ernie's biplane is a 1941 Stearman Cadet D-75N1 built by Boeing.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's not the biplane from 1941.
I don't think so. But anyway, I think that's about it. That is it for the trivia for this. That is it for the. I think that is it. That is it for the trivia. And to anybody who's listening, if I'm missing out something for the trivia of this movie or anything from the movie at all, put in the comment section below. If you're listening to this through Spotify, Podbean, or YouTube. put in the comment section if I'm missing out on anything trivia wise for this movie, or even the movie itself in general, just to throw this out there and let you know, right?
Comment below in the comments.
But anyway, that is about it for this episode. So Mike, thank you for joining me on this episode.
Yeah, no problem. I gotta say, it's been a I say had a great time recording this episode about Follow That Bird.
Yep. Well, I hear the music. That means it's time to say bye-bye.
Yep.
This episode of Codo Cinema is brought to you by the letter B and by the numbers 7, 15, 40, and 1985. That is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mike Codo, aka Codoman.
And I'm Mike Codo.
Remember to watch movies and stay positive.